welcome to the Society with Barrister Fatma Shaheen at PTV World. They say that education is the most powerful weapon to change the world, which then makes one wonder that what all should education then entail. Is it the mere process by which we gain knowledge, or does it go a step ahead to also include the training and the development that we undergo in order to develop the right skill, the right mindset, as well as the right perspective that we need to have in life? Why is education important in any society? What will be the utility of the recently launched SNC, that is the Single National Curriculum? Whether it will be able to address the social injustice in our society today, and what reform do we need to make in order to ensure that it is implemented effectively? This and much more we are going to be talking about in our today's show. And to do that, let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for the show today is Taimur Khalid Bante, who is a senior educationist alongside being a consultant to IB. Assalamu alaikum ji and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
My second panelist for the show here is Alia Aftab, who is a specialist in special education. Assalamu alaikum Alia and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And via Zoom link, we'll be joined by Suhail bin Aziz Saab, who is the Assistant Educational Advisor of National Curriculum Council. Assalamu alaikum sir and welcome to the show. Sir, I would like to start the show with you. I think a very important question which we must clarify and we must get your narrative on to start the show with is the very objective of introducing the SNC, that is the Single National Curriculum, something on which your party has been working on for quite some time now. So what are its objectives, and practically how does it actually aim to end social injustice in the Pakistani society?
One good thing about Single National Curriculum is probably for the first time, they know about what curriculum is and then what syllabus is, and what about textbooks, and they are raising questions like teacher training and many other facilities. So at least it has brought education in the limelight, in the main headlines, and people are talking about it. So you are very much right when you say in 2018 in our present government's manifesto, it appeared and it promised many things, but it's not the first time when a government or a political party promised for a uniform education system, for a uniform curriculum. Many parties, many governments in the past, they have been talking about it, but the credit goes to this government. They started taking steps, the practical steps, and then it moved forward. And where we are now, we have gone through the first phase of Single National Curriculum, and the first phase is out. Looking back to 2006 National Curriculum, when I remember this curriculum changed the scenario of education in Pakistan. It brought many new things in education sector. That was one of the best curricula of that time. But then when it comes to implementation, it took almost 5 to 6 years when the first textbooks came out.
Sir, I would want you to address the implementation, but let's just, for now address the SNC substantively. From what I understand, a large part of the 2006 SNC, which you just mentioned, has been imported into this current curriculum. So what was the need then to bring this new curriculum to start with? Like, what's new about it?
Right. So wherever you talk about curriculum is never a stagnant document. It's always a dynamic document because the world is changing with such speed, I mean,
right.
You could not imagine 5 to 6 years back, 10 years back, let's say, the way the social media has improved. We used to go to libraries, asking the librarians for a couple of books, and it was difficult to get them. And now you see all the knowledge that's on your palm top and your laptop, and that's available. So what was the need? Yes, that's important. Things are changing rapidly. May that be science and technology, may that be your society, your culture. Many things are improving, and as they say, don't raise your children the way you were raised by your parents, because you were born for some other time. And now these children are born for this time, 21st century skills they need, and that's why there was a dire need to bring a curriculum, and that curriculum which will not only give chances to one segment of society, but it will bring chances for everyone. For example, everyone knows about it, that there is not only one system in Pakistan. There are,
there are indeed parallel systems. And I think, sir, you very rightly pointed it out that, it does inculcate the computer science element. And then, of course, I think a pleasant thing in this regard is also the fact that non-Muslim students, they also get to study their religious subjects under the education system for the first time. So tell us about that, because I want you to address the new things which have been introduced.
Yes, yes, this is one of the most important things, and we take pride in it. You see, our Article 22(1) of the Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan that talks about it that you need to teach your minority students, the students who belong to religions other than Islam, their own religion, they should learn. And in the past, since if I say for last many decades, what we were teaching them, that was only a subject that was called ethics, where they were learning about all the religions in one textbook. And then it was a need of the hour. You need to teach them what their religion asks for. For example, initially we started developing curriculum for 5 religions, and they are Christianity, that is Hinduism, that is Sikhism, and for the very first time we went for Baha'is and Kalasha curriculum.
Right, sir. And on that, Taimur, I would want you to tell us about your first-hand experiences, because I have been, following a lot of your Facebook live sessions in which you've been addressing parental concerns about the SNC, that, what all is good about it and what all, according to them, is not so good about it. So what has the response been like? Because I personally feel it's very divided. There is this school of, parents who are in support of it, and then there are those who are actually seriously concerned.
I think I'll start by acknowledging what he said earlier
Right.
on. So it's us that this is the first time that there's been an attempt that is being made to not only work on a curriculum from a holistic point of view, but also bring in the private sector to come in and help the government in terms of developing something. I think since it's just out there in terms of being placed out there, the actual implementation is going to take a while. There's a lot of confusion, there are a lot of questions, there's unseen areas that people have fear.
Right.
Especially from the private sector, there's a feeling that the levels may be brought down instead of the levels of the public
Especially
sector.
when it comes to pulling up basically people. I think there are two ways to look at it at the end of the day, Taimur Saab. Like, there is this argument, I understand, which is coming from critics, that you're pulling the private sector down just to bring up the public sector. But I think the good, at least one can't deny the fact that it is well intentioned that way. How it will be implemented, I think that's too early to comment upon that way. I would like to have your narrative on this, Alia. I know you're a specialist in special education. How inclusive do you see the SNC and generally our education system to be of people with people who are differently abled?
Thank you, Fatma, for asking about special education. First of all, I would like to say that a lot of changes have been done for special children, because obviously their criteria is very different. I work with hearing impaired children, so their curriculum has been modified. It has been shrunk. A lot of life skill education programs, which is one thing good that I really appreciate about this curriculum, that a lot of technical training and life skill education is being focused here, and they are being provided technical training, and a model school has been built up for them, and it's in Johor town, and they are thinking how to place children.
Right.
So I think that it is very good that they are focusing on this thing, but one thing is that I would like, it's too early, like I would say, I would agree with Taimur, it is too early, and parents over there, because the criteria for government school is different and private school is totally different.
Right.
In government school, the medium of instruction is Urdu. So I would say it's not too confusing for the children over there, because they are already studying in Urdu. And
but then what about those who are not studying in Urdu? On that, sir, I would want you to, clarify one thing. One thing that I would also want clarification on is the fact that, when you switch from one language to the other, what is the government's, monitoring mechanism? How will you ensure that, a certain subject as per the SNC guidelines is being taught in English till, whenever it's supposed to be taught, and then there's the switch?
Before coming to monitoring, I must mention why this decision has been taken.
Yes.
Once we started single national curriculum development, at the same time we started working on medium of instruction, and there were multiple meetings, there were conferences, and in those conferences we invited those researchers and the stakeholders from public sector, private sector, and they came and they talked about it, that in the early years the best way of teaching something that is taught in their environmental language. What is the language of their environment? What they hear, here and there, when they go to the market, what sort of language they hear. So what happened, the reality is the teachers are free to teach in any language, but the textbook's language that has been given in the curriculum, in SNC. So now making it Urdu in the beginning and taking it later towards English. So you see from grade 4 onwards, initially there was a plan that mathematics and science that was also developed in Urdu language. But then there was the sense prevailed, and then they said, no, these are the technical subjects, we need to put them in English. But then you cannot deny Urdu is very important language. Once you are going from one province to another, so textbooks should have one language. As far as this monitoring is concerned, Minister Shafkat Mahmood, he has been saying time and again that this is not about we are going and we are checking the schools, but it will be a willful adoption. And what reports we are getting right now, the people are, gradually they're adopting it, and the textbooks they're adopting, and it's not easy to hide anything in schools business.
Right, sir, your point is noted. Would you want to add something to that?
See, I think the resources vary. The resources between schools vary, the resources between the economic backgrounds of parents vary. So each child may get something different at the end of the day. So that's where the discrepancy may come. So there may be one curriculum on paper, but the implementation may be different, or experience may be different for
or the way it's
each
taught
child.
for that matter, the classroom environment that they get, because there's so many practical considerations basically. And I think in this regard, I think special care should be given to persons with disabilities that way basically.
Basically for hearing impaired children, we need to work really hard because we need to know their hearing ability. So we need to test their hearing ability, and we need to provide them with hearing aids, because if the children's ability is really little better even, so and if they are giving hearing aid and if they're given speech therapy, they're going to improve a lot. Like same is the case with blind people. We give them braille books, so they read braille books by touch.
Right.
So they learn by touch.
Technologies, of course, depending on the nature of the disability.
And for, like you were talking about earlier, inclusive. When we talk about inclusive in special education, we say that normal children study with special children, because they should know that what are the difficulties the special children are going through.
But recently the Punjab government has opened up these transgender schools, which is inclusivity of a different kind that way. But
which is a very, I think, very good
It's a very positive and
very
progressive step. But then again, I think they chose not to have them in the same schools as people otherwise, because they thought the acceptability would not be there.
Well, that's a different subject, but I think
but I'm talking about inclusivity in terms of minorities of all kinds.
Yeah, but I think that if you work on inclusive, and especially if the normal children study with special children, they'll have a lot of different threshold when they work with special children, when they deal with special children, because obviously the needs are very different.
Right. Sir, in this regard, does SNC particularly focus on the needs of special children, like how inclusive and how relatable is it for the common man?
Why inclusion is very important for us in single national curriculum, that is proven by the way single national curriculum was launched the other day. It was not only launched by the PM himself, but there were 7 children, and they were from all parts of country. They were from all 4 provinces, and one from South Punjab, and then one from GB, Gilgit-Baltistan, and another from our Azad Jammu and Kashmir. And they were the people from private schools, the government schools, and from South Punjab, from the same school you are mentioning now, transgender. So there was a transgender student was also there. There was a student, PWD, person with disability, so he was also there. So what does that mean? Inclusion is very, very, very important for us. And while developing this curriculum, we had a complete committee where the experts, the former DGs and the present DGs and special education deans, they were part of it, and they worked on it, and they have put all those SLOs, which are very important for those students, especially those who have minor disabilities, especially like dyslexia and some of the same sort of things,
And so we trust that this momentum is going to continue, because we have to have, there are no two ways about it, we have to have a more inclusive education system. And I think in this regard, something which one of my panelists earlier also mentioned, the importance of life, skill-based training, especially with the rise of, all these cases, violence cases against women and child abuse cases. Has that been focused on in the SNC?
No, thank you. Thank you for asking me. Our
SNC
discussion is not complete without mentioning life skills-based education. I tell you, what we have done about life skills-based education, we have included this in single national curriculum. We have included this in the textbooks. Then we talked about it. We developed guidelines for parents, for teachers, for curriculum developers, for textbook authors, for out-of-school children, for special children. And these guidelines have been they have been rolled out, and now we are starting a pilot project in 2 of the districts in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, where there will be a carpet training for the teachers and parents about this child abuse thing and other life skills, because life skills are not limited to child abuse only.
So I think in that way, child abuse I was particularly referring to, because of course that's something which is very rampant in the society. So, you know, other issues as well, be it drug addiction, be it safety, be it health of children. Taimusa, would you want to add something to that?
Yes.
How important is, you know, life skill based education in an education system generally?
I think I'll go back to what ma'am was saying.
Right.
I think she pointed out a very, very important feature in education, that is inclusive education.
Right.
So, in systems like International Baccalaureate, for example, you are forced to be inclusive. Children are with special needs or differently abled children are forced to sit with the rest of the class. You have skills which are part and parcel of the curriculum. So, it's not just that you're reading the content and the text,
Right.
you're actually learning by doing as well. And skills are varied. You pointed some of the very important ones. I
Right.
think they are very, very important considering the times we are living in, talking of what a patriarchal society looks like, and the women rights, minority rights, etc., have to be ingrained in the mind of the
Health.
children. Health, and through our books
So many
and
other
through the
things, exactly.
illustrations we show.
And I
in
think
books.
something which Swales have also pointed out, it should just not be basically limited to children, it should be extended to parents, to teachers,
Exactly.
to everybody, because you know,
Exactly.
education is just not the education that you get from a school,
True.
college or university. Alia, you want to add something?
Education of children starts from home, and
Right.
especially younger children. Like KG level children, teachers will just be a part of it. Basically, the children education will start from home and from the mother. So basically, we need to educate the parents also. Like Sohail Saab is saying, and I think it's a very good step that we are giving teachers training. But I think I would just like to give a suggestion that we should give parents also some assistant in it, because obviously there's a whole paradigm shift from English to Urdu and stuff. So because Urdu is our national language, we need to learn. So when we need to give practical hands-on training to children. I think hands-on training is very important. Like I'm also running a very small school, a very small setup. It's in Greentown, and I'm focusing on inclusive. It's on charity basis, and I'm running on hands-on skill education. Like I teach people, like children over there, skits. Sometimes COVID awareness case, sometimes child abuse, sometimes protection.
Exactly, Alia, but coming to you, sir, there's this particular point which I would like your clarification on. The SNC clearly states that one of its key considerations is to use information and communication technology, so to speak ICT. So, but in COVID-19 times, we've seen that the entire education system has gone through an unprecedented crisis, especially switching to, you know, the online system. So, how exactly is the government planning to implement this?
Definitely not that easy, but one thing I always say that this is blessing in disguise. The people, the teachers, for example, those who are camera shy, they are no more camera shy. The students who had never been exposed to this screen phenomena learning, you know, online learning thing, now at least they have some experience, and the government is aware of that. And now what we are doing is there are many projects going on. Just yesterday we finished another component of this online learning thing, where we have developed some stuff for primary component, middle component, and then secondary component that will be used in a hybrid manner. So wherever we have a trouble, whenever there is a closure of schools, at least we will have some something available that will save the children from wastage of their time, you know. So the government is aware of that. Not that easy. Many training programs are going on, and after that training, we wish that in next 6 months or a year, it will be much better than it was before. But if you compare it with the beginning of COVID thing last year when it started, and now you see, so there is a huge difference. So
Of course, sir, and we do give the government credit that, of course, nobody knew that this pandemic was, would come, because when you envisioned this idea of the SNC, nobody could predict beforehand. So, yes, sir, of course, your point is noted. Coming to you as an educationist and otherwise, how do you overall see, the education system changing in terms of its dynamic in this pandemic?
I think what COVID has done is it has forced us out of our comfort zones.
Right.
It has pushed us out to think out of the box. So EdTech is something that has come up, education through technology as you call it. And now online resources are being provided for children to study at home for things like MD-CAT, engineering university entrance test, CSS, FSC programs are now being uploaded, matriculation programs are now being uploaded to cater to children out there. And a mass majority of the children signing up now are not coming from the major cities. They're coming from smaller towns and nook and corners of the country.
That is exactly what I was going to ask you. Because a major concern of switching to information technology was that it's just accessible to a certain strata of the Pakistani society. Not everybody can access it.
But you'll be surprised. If you look at the smartphone data in Pakistan, it is phenomenal. And if you look at that data and you see the range in which that data is available across the country, it's just brilliant. Of course, there are pockets of areas where you don't have internet facilities,
Right.
but the rest of the country is just phenomenal. So if you team up with, for example, these groups that are providing these services, and you plant education through that, I think this is just going to be brilliant.
I think on that note, Suhail sir, maybe there should be some leverage for public-private partnerships as well in that
Definitely.
regard.
No, there's a huge scope. It happens
course.
across
Much
the
is
world,
going
and like I
on.
said, people are forced to think out of the box.
Right. Alia, you want to add something to
Yeah,
that?
I want to
think
add something.
COVID-19 has affected the minorities, even more minorities.
The
By minorities,
minority,
I
but
mean
it has
exactly.
affected the special children really, because
Right.
you know, I can talk about
I was
special
referring to the
education,
special
yes.
children when I said
Yeah,
minorities.
because you
actually.
see, I agree with them more for normal children, but for special children like blind, for mentally challenged children, for mentally slow children, for hearing impaired children, it's very difficult. I mean, it's very good, but obviously due to COVID, we are forced to do like this. But if I look at the children, their speech has been affected, the progress they were going through has been affected a lot, because these children belong to a certain category.
And
so
I think this
obviously,
is something, Alia, this is a fabric which runs generally in the society. It's just not with regards to education. Like I have had so many women coming up to me in COVID-19, you know, with their cases of domestic violence, abuse, so many
Yes.
cyber crimes has been on the rampant rise. So of course, all these issues need to be considered in their entirety. Coming towards the implementation, something which you were earlier speaking about as well, but I would want you to address now, is the fact that how are you planning to implement this curriculum, you know, given that there are so many other factors which could actually make it a win-win, like teacher training, like school infrastructure, and like provision of facilities, maybe better resources as well, so many things. So how are those being catered to?
This is very, very important to clarify here that no one ever said that single national curriculum is the only solution, the sole solution of all problems of education system. And as you
Right,
said
sir.
earlier, and Temur also said the same thing, that this is one right step in the right direction. One best thing what we have done is we are not bringing only curriculum, but we have seen curriculum in its entirety. For example, when we talk about curriculum, we are bringing the textbooks, and we are talking about teacher training modules, and then the assessment framework. Assessment, that is the backbone of learning. So when all these four things are coming together, the best thing why we were able to bring this single national curriculum on table within few months, the reason was these model textbooks. Well, you can criticize them. This is not the final word. And Minister Shafkat Mahmood and the government has been saying that we are going to edit the things in the light of all that feedback that is coming from different quarters. We are going to review the whole curriculum from 1 to 5 and then 6 to 8, and then developing the new curriculum 9 to 12, and then by March next year we'll be there with the all curriculum ready, and then next year we'll be ready to bring out, roll out the 6 to 8 curriculum. So implementation phase, yes, teacher training is very important. What we have done is we are done with teacher training modules. Punjab, KP, ICT, and other areas, they have already started training. Punjab is going for second phase of training right now. Hundreds and thousands of teachers, they have been trained, not only in the government sector, but private sector, thanks to this EdTech once again. So people are using it. And once again, we have lots of plans in near future, using this EdTech for teacher training also.
I think it's good that you've clarified it using this forum, and it should be publicized more. What would your recommendations be with regards to, more effective implementation of the SNCR?
I think he's covered most of the areas in terms of teacher training, etc., and piling up resources like libraries, labs, etc., wherever obviously possible. But I think I would take the focus back to the curriculum. There are areas we're living in the 21st century. We are in 2021. We are global citizens, whether we like it or not. And now we're competing with the rest of the world. So the skills that we lack, things like emotional intelligence, for example, or skill development.
Sir, there is a key consideration which talks about emotional development. I remember reading it, aesthetic development, spiritual development as well of the children. So maybe that has been addressed.
Yeah, so those areas need to be highlighted more. I think now it's the time where you teach children how to make a LinkedIn account. You teach them how to start a startup. You know, gone are those days that we teach them what is an internet and what is a CPU,
but
etc.
I think, you know, this is like focusing on formal education that way, SNC being, of course, curriculum being part of that, and the informal is maybe left to parents like yourself, or I think in which the society needs to take a more proactive role as well. I personally think it would be unfair to throw all the, you know, responsibility on the state that way, because I think this is a social issue. Taimur Saab, you want to add something to that?
I think that society is also has some responsibility, because obviously state is doing whatever it can. So we as a society, we as a parents, we as a human being, we also need to give some input in it. And as far as emotional intelligence, I would say that mental health is very important. And mental health covers child abuse, child protection, parental tips, focusing, everything. It covers. So I think we should address, because these issues are on the rise.
If education bit is covered adequately, then all these issues would be dealt with accordingly too.
Yes, because if it is covered, then you see, I'm like hoping that obviously this curriculum is something new, and in the coming days we'll come to know better. It's too easy to talk about it right now.
And early as
well.
And
early as well. That's what I'm saying. It's too early.
Right.
So obviously the government has done a lot of work.
I'd just like to come in over here that you see, we have to look at the areas and sectors that are performing or that are reporting success. What are they doing right? So we need to adapt things from them. If it's the Cambridge stream, if it's the intermediate stream or the IB stream, let's pick up the best practices from them and try and inculcate them and revisit this.
You are a consultant for IB itself, so you know, what would your suggestions be? What are the best practices that we could possibly
The beauty about IB is that they are more inclined towards concept-based learning. So you can pick up any content and teach it with the IB philosophy. And there's the drilling of things like academic honesty, for example, which is drilled into the kids right from grade 1, so they know what plagiarism is, what referencing, etc. is. It is inclusive in terms of children with special needs. Differently abled kids are part and parcel of forced out there. And the best part, what I personally like, it is inquiry based. So you teach children research, you teach children inquiry.
The focus is on skill development. You're telling children, you know, how to think, not what to think.
And the child is the agent of change.
Right.
The agency lies with the child.
Right. So I think in this regard, it's very important to, you know, consider what both of them have said, and I would want your narrative on it as well, that what is that, you know, focus on critical thinking, what is the focus of skill development particularly in this SNC?
So this is one of those areas where where I can tell you we have moved in long distance, you know. And as Taimur said, we have also consulted IB system, we consulted Cambridge system, we consulted Singapore curriculum, we went for Malaysian, Indonesia standards, and of course Cambridge, UK. We send our our curriculum for science, mathematics, English, and we got, you know, those areas where we needed some something to do something more, and we have inculcated lots of things. And again, while talking about sustainable development goals, especially SDG 4.7, when we talk about it, so we had specialized conferences, and the outcome of that conference that was made a part of, you know, not only the curriculum but the textbooks, and once again that is in the teacher training. So when it comes to critical thinking, I invite you to look at the books, the textbooks, and curriculum, of course, the model textbooks and the curriculum, and you can find there where a student, for example, a grade 1 student, when you are telling him that sun is very important, it provides you heat, it provides you light, it is very important for, you know, life on this earth. So when we talk about life skills based education, World Health Organization talks about 10 top life skills, and critical thinking and creative thinking, these two are very, very important there, and these are very well addressed in curriculum. Yes, there will be room for improvement, but then we are addressing it in the later stages also.
Right, so but I think it's factually good that, you know, you've pointed this out. But moving on, I think a very important part of this whole discussion, since we have to see this whole thing in the entirety of the education system as well, is that, you know, you can only implement the SNC or overall improve the quality or standard of the education system if you improve the people's access to it as well. So in this regard, sir, just tell us that, you know, what initiatives have been taken by the government to also on the side improve access to education?
You see, access is another very, very important phenomena. As you said, as we said earlier, EdTech. I mean, EdTech is being used. You see, during in post-COVID phenomena, how quickly we came up with tele-talim, again with PTV. That was an initiative. Tele-school project with PTV that was started, and we could reach every corner of Pakistan, and then radio school phenomena. And then now we are working with, as you said earlier, public-private partnership. So we are working on that, and then this access issue, we are able to bridge the gaps through EdTech. And at the same time, you see another issue. That was about prices of the textbooks. Now you go to the market and you check the prices of those textbooks which are developed as model textbooks, and you will be amazed. You will be amazed to see that only for 540 rupees or something, you are able to get grade 1 and 2 books, and maximum when you go for grade 5 books of SNC, so you are able to get it 800 rupees plus, and that's it. So this is a pleasant surprise for many of the parents. And again, as you look at poverty in the country, so this is a big relief for everyone, and
especially in the pandemic, sir. And I think in this regard, Taimur sir, I would want to have you on board. I think a very important aspect of this whole discussion is all the fact that, you know, we have to prioritize girls' education, overcome the, you know, barriers which exist to them. So what would your proposals be in this regard, that how can the government work to actually overcome these barriers?
I think the government has started on the right footing when the ASAS program was launched, and I saw that the figures of 500 plus for the girls, which is really heartening to see.
And recently the stipends have also been increased.
Stipends have also been increased, but I think there has to be a mass campaign. This is a very deep-rooted issue. So there has to be a mass media campaign to encourage more female role models have to come in our books, more female role models have to come on our television,
they need to
in
be
our plays.
publicized.
They need to be publicized, and there are role models in our everyday lives on a national scale.
Right.
So from politics to sports, I think they need to be highlighted, and more women need to be shown.
Of course, because I think women feel very, you would agree with me on this, they feel very motivated when they see women in positions of power, and it motivates them to, you know, go up there. So Alia, what would your recommendations be? Because I think I've gotten the state narrative from him, and sir has also detailed us about that. Generally, as a society, how can we, you know, ensure that not only the SNC, overall the quality of the education system is improved?
You see, what we need to do is we need to discourage children on rote learning. What children do is they do rote learning nowadays. So I think by single national curriculum, everything will be one based, because all the curriculum and syllabus will be same. So we need to discourage children on rote learning, and we need to encourage them on hands-on training, like Taimur was saying, skill education. We have to tell them this change has to come from within them, and we have to encourage parents even to encourage them to have an hands-on
parents, and
training.
I think in this regard, even the media has a very
You
important
see, the media,
role to play,
the
something which
social
we were
media
earlier
and the
talking
electronic
of course,
media, both.
Electronic media, because education today is just not that
Even
typical
the print
education
media.
in a classroom.
Television plays
such an important
We
role.
need to talk about these things. We need to have educational programs. We need to
And
have more educational
I think
programs.
more progressive dramas showing
Dramas.
women who are strong and basically who set the narrative right as well in this regard.
Our
Sir,
drama
what
should
would
be
your
educational.
opinion be on this? I do understand that we are talking about the education system, but of course nothing can just be seen in isolation. We have to consider the whole argument. What role can media possibly play in this regard to overall improve the quality and standard of education in Pakistan?
Before coming to this, I will just add to what you said earlier about gender thing. You know, I mean, this is one area where we are once again, we are very proud that we have added many things. For example, in the past, if a child is shown, a girl child is shown, and she's talking about herself, saying what I want to be. So it was mostly a doctor or a teacher or something. That is, you know, typical female roles. But now you just pick up grade 1 general knowledge book, and the girl is there, Seema, and she's saying, I want to be a pilot when I grow up. And when she talks about her favorite sport, so she talks about hockey. And again, you know, you're talking about Ruth Fau, and you're talking about Samina Fayalbeg, and you're talking about many other strong personalities. So here we have ensured that gender parity is, you know, that is ensured.
Right.
Now, coming to media, role of media, that is very, very crucial. I just tell my children, look, if I know so many, I mean, poetry of Allama Iqbal, and I have taken something, some inspiration from that. That was because there was always, you know, there was a poetry of Iqbal just before the Khabarnama at 9, you know, or after the Khabarnama at 9 and all that. So media role, number 1. Number 2, the dramas, special dramas for children, you know, you're missing this now. Special shows for children. And if there are no special shows for children, they are sitting with the parents and watching what adults are watching at, you know, that 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock dramas, the soap serials, and they are watching it. So here media role is very,
so I think I
very,
really
very
agree with you on that. There needs to be, I think the programming needs to be more child focused that way, in terms of dramas, in terms of raising educational issues. And I think this is something that can even be done, you know, via radio for that matter, because in the rural areas, if we see, radio is one very effective way of actually educating people. But sir, I think a very important thing which arises in this regard is the fact that, you know, we all know that education now, especially after the 18th Amendment, is a provincial subject. subject. Punjab has accepted this SNC, but Sindh has showed its reservations. So how is the government, planning to deal with this?
So you see, one of the big differences between 2006 curriculum and this 2020 SNC is, this consultation, the level of consultation. I tell you, all Sindh team was part of development of this curriculum from day one. Until the last day when in the conference that was, consensus was achieved, they were part of it, and there is no problem on expert side when they say that what should a curriculum be. So there is no problem about that. When it comes to implementation, yes, they had a couple of questions. They had a question about the language, and it has been clarified a couple of times. Like if they say, for example, some certain subjects are to be taught in Sindhi language, or Sindhi language has to be there. So yes, it has to be there. We all respect regional languages, and for that matter, not only Sindhi, but Pashto and even in Punjab, Punjabi or Balochi or other languages, they should also be there. The Barabi and other languages, they can be there. There is no problem about that. Number two, when people talk about 18 amendments, so they think that once this ball has been thrown in the court of provinces, so federal government is free from doing everything. No, 25A, for example, when there was a case in the Supreme Court,
Right.
and they said federal government cannot absolve itself from its responsibility of 25A. And in the same way, you see in NCOC time, all the decisions they are taken with mutual consultation. And so similarly, what happened here in education, especially for single national curriculum, so all the provinces, they sat together, not only the provinces, but areas like Gilgit-Baltistan, Azad Jammu Kashmir, and different other stakeholders. They came on board and they worked together. And this was the constitutional role of federal government that it was playing. And that is to bring all the stakeholders, all the federating units together on one platform, and they work together. So that's how this is not against 18th Amendment.
No, sir, I am not saying that it's against 18th Amendment. I agree. In fact, I stated what you're saying. My only question, sir, remains that, of course, Sindh has that domain to reject it under the 18th Amendment because education now is a provincial subject. My question remains, which is, sir, that in the event that it keeps doing so, what will happen to the equity in education that you wanted to bring? Because then there would be, interprovincial disparities in education.
Normally, we always believe that sense will prevail end of the day, because whatever reservations they have shown, they are met with, and there is no harm in sitting together. We want to learn from each other experiences. They said we have worked in certain areas better than federal government, so fine. This is very good, and consultations are going on all levels, from provincial, from ministerial level to experts level and decision maker level. And I believe in near future you will hear good news that this has been agreed upon.
Inshallah. And sir, what would your concluding message be for all the viewers out there, especially when it comes to SNC, because it's a much debated upon topic?
One of the areas that we have touched in our single national curriculum for the first time is critical media literacy, digital media literacy. So what media literacy is, whatever message comes to you, you should go for its authenticity, which source it is coming from, why has this message been created, and what is the target there. So once we have these questions in our minds, then we can understand why this criticism is coming. Who is criticizing? Is this criticism only based on innocence, or there are some other motives behind it? So my only one take, my request to everyone is, please give it a chance, some time, let it be implemented, let it come to the schools. And if you have questions in your mind, if there are some reservations, please go to authentic resources. And what are the authentic sources? You go to the ministry websites, you talk to the people who really know what is reality.
Thank you so much, sir, for your time. Coming to you, Taimur Sahab, and coming towards the conclusion of the show itself too. What would your message be regarding today's show? Education, society, how can they go together?
I think it's a holistic approach. The society has to join hands. It's not the government's prerogative alone to do any kind of deliberation, but the government also has to be open to criticism, also has to be open to suggestions,
Of course.
also be open to ideas, and that's how things will evolve. Otherwise,
Right.
we'll stagnate.
Of course.
And we have to keep in line the 21st century skill set, something I mentioned earlier.
And
Because
this is something which Sohail Saab also said, that they are open to review, and of course nothing can be stagnant ever that
Yeah,
way. Everything
yeah.
keeps on changing. So you have to be flexible that way. Alia, what would your concluding
Well,
message
I think
be?
people don't know much about single national curriculum right now. And I think it's the government's duty. I mean, just that they should tell people more about it. Because loads of people are very confused that what is going to happen. Some people are saying something, some people are saying
Right.
something. So we should educate the masses, we should educate the society and make the society a part of it. Because government is doing its duty. We as a nation, the society also has to give in. So as a special children, I mean as a special educationist, I'm going to tell that it's good that special education has been taken into consideration and SDG 4 has been addressed, but we still need to do much more. And open to criticism and making changes is something very healthy.
And I think that
it's
is
very
something
healthy
which the
step.
government also, gives due importance to, because of course, like they said, that it's just the first step, things are going to follow. And I think we have covered that reformative and suggestive kind of
Yeah, once it goes into the
proposals.
schools, the children are going to read about it. And then obviously the government is open to make changes even. So obviously they are considering it's a very good step. So I think the basic thing is to educate people, educate the masses, talk a lot about it.
And thank you so much, Sohail Saab, for being here with us today.
Thank you very much, and especially thank you to your team, your producer and you, the way you have come up with all preparation, all knowledge about single national curriculum, pertinent questions. So I congratulate you. And this is another message for all those channels also. Whenever they are talking about it, they should come with preparation.
Thank you, sir. I take that as a compliment. Thank you so much, Taimusa, for being here with us today.
You're most welcome, Ji. Thank you for inviting me
You're
and giving time to all sorts of views about single national curriculum.
I think PTV should be thanked for it as well. And thank you so much, Alia, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Fatma, and you're most welcome for talking about single national curriculum and especially related to special education.
Yes, because I think
which is
all
very
the,
close to my heart.
Exactly, and this is something which should be covered, because a lot of
Yes.
TV channels I see, they just talk about it
Yeah.
in one angle. I think it's something which is so holistic, it's something which is so diverse, something so big that you need to dissect it in order to be able to talk
And we
about
need to
it.
know about it,
Of
because
course.
unless we don't have any, people have loads of apprehension, confusion.
Right.
So I think this is the platform to clear all the confusions and address people's questions.
Right, exactly.
And then tell them that what is single national curriculum all about.
Thank you so much, Alia, for being here with us today. Well, to conclude today's show, the only thing that I would want to reiterate in today's conclusion is the fact that there is no doubt that the SNC, that is the single national curriculum, as it stands, is well intentioned in the sense that it aims to standardize education in multiple streams in Pakistan. But whether it will be practically implemented and whether it will be implemented in the way it is meant to be implemented will turn on a lot of other things, like teacher training, like capacity building of teachers, like for that matter school infrastructure, and so many other things which actually make up the education system, because curriculum, as we all know, is just one part of that. So let's hope that this well-intentioned SNC is implemented in its true letter and spirit. On that note, signing off for today. Until next time, take care and Allah Hafiz.